welcome everybody. So this is our Lanterns AI Momentum series. It's really about taking a total and comprehensive look at the key capabilities organizations need to have in order to move beyond those AI proof of concepts and those early stage explorations to really truly scale AI value. If you're new to Lantern, we're an AI first consultancy with 20 plus years delivering outcomes and measurable results for our clients through the power of the Microsoft ecosystem. It's great to have you here. My name is Jeremy Bierlein. I'm your host for the series. I'm a Principal Technology Strategist here at Lantern. I've got about 25 years in the IT industry, both as a CIO direct, a capability owner, an enterprise architect, and solution strategist. So it's great to have you with us. Jeff will be our keynote speaker today. Jeff, you want to introduce yourself?
You bet. Thanks, Jeremy. So, hi guys, I'm Jeff Johnston. Also have had 25 years in the industry, both from an app dev and data and AI perspective, 18 years with Lantern and one of its predecessors. And I'm currently serving as a Principal Technology Strategist. I am also a professor at SMU here in Dallas, teaching data analytics in 3 different programs, undergrad, MBA, and Master's in Business Analytics.
Thank you, Jeff. Look forward to today. So what are we going to cover today? First of all, we're going to do a really quick baseline on where organizations are in the journey and how organizations can think about where they are in that journey about realizing AI value. Jeff's going to talk a little bit more about how AI has changed the game in terms of demanding more from your data ecosystem. We'll talk about some of those key challenges in your data that prevent AI from scaling or slow you down. Talk about how do you break down data silos? How do you overcome poor data quality? And how do you unlock enterprise knowledge for AI? And then lastly, bring it all together with data governance practices. In other words, not just the platform and the tooling side of the equation, but the people and the process side of the equation as well. A helpful way that we found to benchmark, this is something that Microsoft and Ipsos Research came up with, and we find it a real helpful way for organizations to take a look about where they are in their AI value realization journey. If you joined us for episode 1, this one's a bit of a repeat, but I think it's good to continually ask ourselves in our organizations where we are in this progression. The data points to, and we just had a refresh of this data, that most organizations are in that 2, 3, and maybe they've got a few breakout use cases in 4 and 5. For example, we've got a couple of digital and physical product companies that we work with, and they've worked and embedded AI into one of their products, for example. So in this particular use case, maybe they are all the way over to a 5. If they look at their portfolio of AI holistically, they still may be on the whole, maybe in workplace or other places, in that 3-ish sort of neck of the woods. And so I think this is just a helpful way we found to talk with organizations about where they perceive that they are at. At a high level, where are organizations losing momentum? We see really 2 key places that we can point to. First of all is this endless experimentation. We've delivered a POC, we've delivered another POC, we've delivered a third POC, but there's not the organizational prioritization, the organizational momentum for investment on it, and taking it out of this POC. A lot of the things around this are as much organization and focus on value. Are we measuring value? Are we focused on the right things as anything else? The other major place, and the place where really we see data and challenges with the data estate, challenges with data quality coming into play, is really this stalling before the finish line. Hey, we've had a great pilot project, but all of a sudden we're getting towards scaling, we're getting towards rolling this out into production. And all of a sudden, maybe it's a lot more stakeholders, maybe it's a lot more opinions. Data is showing up and underlying a lot of the reasons why organizations are stalling at the finish line. There'll be this debate about accuracy, like how good does this AI have to be? And wait, we're seeing an inaccurate result. Is it an accurate result of the AI, or is it actually an issue with the data, for example, underlying it, an old SOP that didn't get curated out, for example? So data quality, data availability. Sometimes it will be wow, great. If we could just teach the AI these 2 more subjects in our organization, then we'd be ready to go live. Well, those are locked over in this other knowledge management system here or some other place. At the end of the day, of the two main places where organizational momentum around AI stalls out, it's really here stalling at the finish line before that big use case going to production. Data will really be one of the key make or breaks on your organization's ability to scale AI. Now, data at the end of the day is just one part of these key capabilities for AI momentum. In our last session, we talked a little bit about an AI activated organization and how AI fluency from your leaders, about 8% of leaders would be considered AI fluent, according to some research that we talked about, can really impede your momentum or help you accelerate. Likewise, up over the top, having that strategy and approach for measuring and realizing value, having an AI informed business strategy, and then really these core technology enablers, your underlying cloud infrastructure, safety and security, what engines you're choosing for your AI. But today we're really going to zero in on this concept of a data foundation and issues on availability, quality, understandability for purposes of AI. So I'm really excited to learn from Jeff today. And so Jeff, take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeremy. I think I'd like to start us off with a quote from Gartner. I'm a big fan of Gartner and a lot of their research. And based on their research, 60% of AI projects will fail if these projects are not supported by an AI-ready data practice, right? So this is important to keep in mind, especially as we start to look at what a modern AI-ready data infrastructure looks like. This is a slide that was published by Gartner, and I thought I would use it here. One of the things that you'll notice is if we think back just a couple of years before ChatGPT broke the dam of AI and all the different things that AI seems to be everywhere now, right? But before, AI was really centrally funded. It was IT governed. These initiatives typically sat on top of clean, mostly structured data, right? In an organization like a data warehouse or a data lake. Departments consumed AI as finished solutions, and they didn't necessarily build models themselves. Fast forward to 2025, and now AI and data seems to be coming from everywhere, right? And Gartner's CEO survey shows that development is no longer limited to just IT. And now it's coming from business units and software vendors and even citizen developers are all using AI infused capabilities every single day. So in this diagram, what the left hand model shows really doesn't apply anymore, at least in total. The data volume and types of data have really exploded. Only about 10 to 30% of enterprise data is still structured, and 70 to 90% is unstructured. It could be PDFs, it could be chat logs, it could be videos. All of that content is what AI demands for some new tooling and new skills and a modern look at what an AI infrastructure looks like. Almost 2/3 of organizations admit that they lack AI-ready data or an AI-ready data platform and the data management practices that go along with that. And so when we think about what it means to be successful here, a silo-free and always-on modern data infrastructure is becoming more mission critical in this world of AI. And this infrastructure is not necessarily a destination. You can't say, oh, I need my infrastructure to look just like that right side model. It's going to be a bit of a moving target, right? We are at the pace of change of all of this extremely fast. And I think just making sure we plan for a governed, continuously improving platform that attempts to meet each use case where it lives, whether it be structured data, unstructured data, centralized, configured, built. There's all types of dimensions that we could potentially attack these things from. And so I think making sure that we understand this going into this, we're going to talk about some of these ways we can unleash your data for AI, and by couching this around some of these data barriers that we see as impediments to AI success. AI use cases are popping up everywhere, and your data lives everywhere also. We're seeing the following data barriers to AI success. First, Data lives all over the place. It's in silos a lot of times, right? Very few customers that we come across actually have a centralized data platform. And I'm not saying that every single use case requires a centralized data platform. Let's be clear about that. But it certainly can speed the velocity of new AI use cases along, giving you more momentum to achieve success. The next thing, and this is coming up more and more as we go along, is the need. If you don't happen to have your data in a centralized data platform, it's decentralized, that's okay. But having a central data catalog or at least a catalog of catalogs, where you can define terms, you can define definitions, you can have all of that there and accessible and in a very user-friendly application. That way, teams don't have to spend time hunting and understanding and reconciling all these different data definitions. They know where to go. They know where data is located and they know how it's defined so that they can bring that together into their AI use case. The third thing is, I think this is probably extremely obvious, but data quality is oftentimes one of the last things that application developers or platform administrators actually worry about until it's time to start to make predictions on data with predictive models and potentially with generative AI as well. And so data quality that's inconsistent, not well managed, dirty data really prevents AI projects from reaching their full potential. You might get some stuff to work and you may be able to muddle through, but if you want to really build trust in some of your AI use cases, make sure that data is of high quality and you have a process around doing that. And we'll get into a little bit more of that here in just a second. And then finally, what do we do with unstructured data, right? If 80% of our documents and data in the organization is unstructured, what are some ways that we can unlock that and make use of that unstructured data in terms of AI for our organization? And we'll talk to you about a couple of examples there. In order for you to put yourself in a position to unlock AI success with your data, you have to make changes to the disciplines of data management, of the processes surrounding data management, and along with some of the architecture and technologies that you need to use. And so let's dive into our first kind of data barrier to unlocking success, and that's related to data silos. One of the most persistent challenges we see with enterprise AI initiatives is the prevalence of data silos in organizations. And that means a couple of things. Not only they do not know sometimes where data is located, but maybe those teams that are trying to realize those AI use cases don't have access to that data either. Gartner surveys show that nearly 40% of organizations cite the lack of data as a top barrier to AI implementation. So this isn't just about having enough data. It's about the data being locked away in these different systems, departments, or formats, making it incredibly difficult to leverage for AI use cases. And this applies to both traditional AI and generative AI models. We need access to this data that may be locked away. And so one approach is to adopt a centralized modern data platform that you can help overcome those barriers. And so you're like, okay, well, what is a modern data platform, right? And typically, this is a cloud native end-to-end architecture that collects, it stores, it serves data for all analytical purposes, including AI and machine learning, and potentially some operational use cases as well in an organization. And so instead of having kind of a patchwork of point solutions and some legacy data warehouses all over the organization, bringing that into more of a fully managed set of services that works together in one platform will give users the ability to find data more easily and accessibly. And so let's maybe pause here for just a second. And I think it's a good time to kind of launch our first poll here and let's see what results come in. So with that, here we go. So how often does your team lose time chasing down data locked away in disconnected systems before an AI project can even start? We'd love to see your responses there. Looks like frequently is leading the way with occasionally catching up. Excellent.
I noticed a distinct lack of rarelies, Jeff.
Yes. So as we would expect. Very cool. As these results come in, we'll proceed to the next slide. And I think one of the ways that we can potentially tackle this is through a platform like Microsoft Fabric. It doesn't have to be Fabric. You may use Azure Databricks or something like that as well. But Fabric is an example of a modern data platform that combines the best of things like Power BI and data warehouses, lakehouses, and other capabilities, machine learning as well, to really create this unified software as a service platform for a lot of different workloads where you can spend time actually creating solutions and not time having to integrate them all together. You can think of Fabric as almost Office 365 for data. Data Factory provides a lot of the data integration capabilities. Real-time intelligence, along with Activator, allows you to grab data in real time, analyze that data, and set alerts. Everything from data engineering to data science to data warehousing is all available through Microsoft Fabric. And you can then top it up with Copilot if you'd like to bring some of that generative AI, and Fabric data agents are also pretty amazing when it comes to unifying both the structured data and generative AI together to ask natural language questions of your data. And so all of these different things, when we are able to bring all of that together and then layer on some governance with a platform like Microsoft Purview, this allows us to really unlock and unleash that data that may be locked away in different silos. And it doesn't mean that it's an easy button, right? That there is some effort that goes into bringing all that data together and making it available. So let's talk about a particular customer example where we were able to unlock data in an AI use case. We have a customer called Unify, and Unify is the largest aviation services provider in North America with over 25,000 employees and supporting almost 1 million flights a year and so on. And they're located over 200 different airports. And at each airport, there's different stations, and they handle all the ground handling for aircraft. And the Wall Street Journal had a well-published article post-COVID about how ground handling incidents were increasing. In some cases, it was 50% year over year for some airlines, 25% year over year for Unify. And they wanted a way to try to predict when incidents were going to occur. So we worked with them, especially their operations and safety teams, to understand their data. In this case, they had a centralized data platform, which meant that, hey, we could really accelerate this AI use case. And we started by bringing together a lot of different data sets, from flight data to weather data to personnel data and shift data. And we're able to really, by location and by station, predict where the risk areas were in the network. And this led to a follow-on project as well, which was, hey, let's also prescribe steps to take at each of those stations so that we can actually mitigate any risks that may be in the network. We worked very closely with the safety team to establish those steps to take. We didn't just make those up on our own. And the results were very, very good in terms of, initially, about a year or so after this was implemented, we had stopped the increase in incidents year over year. And a little time after that, now they're starting to see about a 20% reduction in incidents as well. This is very successful, had a very real human element to it. Anytime you're talking about safety, you're putting people at the front of the line to make sure they're safe in their jobs. And so this is a way that AI was able to do that. It combined both that prescriptive aspect and the predictive aspect of AI. And it really was something we love to talk about. So our next barrier to unleashing data for AI is really documenting and defining what you have. And this is where a data catalog can play a big role. And it's not often fun to have to go through and document and define and debate oftentimes with the folks in your organization about what a particular metric or a particular aspect of your data means. But it is certainly something that is very much needed, especially if you have a decentralized data platform where data is dispersed in a lot of different platforms around the enterprise. When you're spending time upfront in an AI project, arguing over the definition of metrics and other values, and other features as part of your model, this AI project velocity gets really bogged down from that. And so instead of having to do that as part of every AI use case, having a data catalog in place to address that and take care of that, and having a people and process defined to manage that data catalog is something that can save you a lot of time as more and more AI use cases get identified and budgeted for the organization. Implementing a modern data catalog helps provide that central visibility. And one potential option, and there are many, whether it's the Purview Unified Catalog or something like Databricks Unity Catalog, both of these types of catalogs really provide that central visibility to your data, no matter where it lives. And in Purview's case, this applies to both Microsoft and non-Microsoft endpoints. And it really gives users the ability to responsibly discover the data that they need by using AI-powered natural language. So it provides a very easy user interface. Doesn't mean that the end users have to know how it's administered and all of that stuff. They just want to know they can come to this portal. They can look for certain types of data in their organization and find not only where it is located, which source it's in, but what touches that data along the way. What is the data linkage that is provided? And not only does Purview provide a really robust data catalog experience, but also it can manage the data lineage and data quality. We'll talk about data quality here in just a second as well. And so from business users to data stewards to data owners, each audience works with Purview to curate a centralized data catalog. And so let's look at one quick customer example here. A living catalog is great to understand what data do we have and how is this data defined. So one of our customers, which is a nationally distributed brewery, had some challenges getting everyone to speak the same language after a few mergers and acquisitions. In one case, they had a few different warehouses, and these warehouses all came from different entities that are now part of their corporate family. And when you tried to do reporting on those warehouses, in the actual warehouses where the product is stored, not the data warehouse, when they're speaking different terms, then it's really hard to create performance reporting on how things are performing from a warehouse operations perspective. And so leveraging Purview's unified catalog was a great way that we could establish a common glossary, a common set of terms that the business users could then use, and the report developers could also use as well, so that they knew where the data was, where they could go get it, and everyone could be on the same page with regard to these terms, not only the glossary terms, but the metric definitions as well, made it very easy to consume from a user's perspective. And so this can really enable organizations to move forward with those targeted analytics and AI initiatives without slowing things down by having one of these catalogs in place. So now that we've talked about the value of the data catalog, let's dive into our next data barrier, which is data quality. I think beyond data silos and data catalogs, the quality of your data is paramount. Poor data quality can be a very critical impediment to AI success. And it's a reminder to us all that even the most advanced AI solutions can't overcome flawed inputs. And I know everybody has heard garbage in, garbage out. That really holds true with AI and not only predictive models, but generative models as well. And data quality isn't just about cleanliness. Cleanliness can be multifaceted. It can mean, is the data accurate? Is it complete? Is it consistent? Is it timely? Is it unique? Do we have a lot of duplicates or not? And does it conform to the organization's standards? To make sure that we ensure this data quality as part of the organization, in implementing a robust data quality management solution is becoming non-negotiable. It involves not only defining clear sets of standards for each dimension of data quality, but also making sure that you're monitoring data quality along the way. We can implement data quality screens all day long as part of our data integration layers of our data platform. But if we're not monitoring it, and if we're not remediating those data quality issues that pop up, then it's not doing us a lot of good. There are ways that we can proactively monitor data pipelines, detect when data quality issues are occurring, which statistical properties we need to pay attention to, and so on. It can be tools like Databricks Lakehouse Monitoring, and it can be tools like Microsoft Preview that can help track that. And I think quality is going to be critical for meaningful AI outcomes. So it's a great quote from Gartner that through 2026, 30% of generative AI projects will be abandoned after the POC due to poor data quality. And so making sure that you pay attention to data quality is something that is going to become more and more important as your organization adopts more and more AI use cases. To give you an example, there are a lot of different ways to do this, but Purview does have a data quality dashboard and scorecards built in. And it's a great way to give data stewards a workspace to measure, to monitor, and improve the reliability of data wherever it lives. Could be Azure, could be multi-cloud, could be on-prem, and making sure that you leverage that. And Purview does have some AI-powered components built into this, so you don't have to do all the work from scratch. And so there's some out-of-the-box rules and different data quality screens that you can implement. And the nice thing about it is you can make sure you set alerts for this as well and be able to manage it in a more proactive way. A few highlights to mention here is there's data quality scorecards where you can see at a glance how your data quality is across your data platform. I wish everybody had one of these types of reports that was live and was always running. There's also some health report dashboards as well. There's a rules-based scanning engine, which can mix out of the box and custom patterns for you to implement rules that validate business logic against a lot of your data and data pipelines. I think this is a great way to talk about these data barriers in terms of the data silos, the data catalog, the data quality. But then there's one more that we see quite a bit that I wanted to talk about next, and that's the unstructured data that lives inside an organization. For unstructured data, there's a number of challenges that this presents. First, it's estimated that anywhere from 70 to 90% of data inside an organization is unstructured, and sometimes it remains locked away, right? How do we overcome this? If we don't necessarily have all of our data in a centralized place, is there a way that we can unlock some of this unstructured data to actually leverage AI, right? To make it accessible. And maybe we don't have the budget to necessarily create a centralized data platform. So what is a way that we could potentially work around that? And one of the things that we've been successful with is implementing RAG applications, retrieval augmented generation. These solutions really do allow for an effective way to utilize fragmented and unstructured data, where a lot of bringing that together in a structured way could be very hard. And we can do this by allowing users to bring their own data as a potential option as well, whether that is websites that we need to scrape, maybe it's textbooks, maybe it's PDFs, maybe whatever it may be. We can allow users to be able to self-serve in that way to bring their data and have conversations with their data that may be unstructured. So I think this maybe is a good time to launch our next poll related to unstructured data. Roughly how much of your organization's knowledge do you think is locked away in unstructured data, whether it's documents, PDFs, images, chats, etc., and potentially is unused in your AI initiatives? Anywhere from 50 to 75, we're seeing so far. Perfect. A lot still in the dark. Excellent. So I think this is a great time to talk about an example of how has Lantern made this work and how have they made it work at scale. So this customer is an academic medical school, one of the top in the country, medical school and research university. And we were challenged with helping turn all of this dark, unstructured data into searchable knowledge and help allow a lot of these clinicians and researchers have conversations with their data. For example, when a grant comes in, a researcher will take that corpus of knowledge, whether it's websites, documents, textbooks that may be relevant, and so on, and load them up into the application in order to get to their outcomes faster. Instead of having to page through and search through and do all of that stuff, we can load that into this solution. It could be PDFs, text, as I mentioned, meeting transcripts, all types of things. So with this particular solution, we ended up rolling it out to a few hundred users. Within a year, we were at 4,000 users. And so the scale was enormous. We had to make sure that not only we had the scalability built in, this was an Azure-based application. I'll talk a little bit more about the components here in a minute. But ultimately, we ended up ingesting over 1 million endpoints. So that's PDFs, websites, textbooks, et cetera, supporting those 4,000 users. And we created an API layer as part of that. So if there was a particular bit of research, whether it be cardiac or cancer research, they could create an API specifically for that particular use case. And it was super successful. And so it not only was able to scale, but we also built what we call our Lantern loader, which allows for the very fast parallel ingestion of a lot of that data. Turned out to be very popular and certainly scalable as well. And just to take a look at the architecture for this at a high level, we leveraged OpenAI. We grounded a lot of the documents for each one of those particular use cases. You could choose your own OpenAI model if you wanted to. We leveraged other things like Azure Document Intelligence as well. So all these different things we used, and then had a very just straightforward front-end user interface that each of the users, whether you were a clinician or a researcher, could leverage to have conversations with their unstructured data. So it was a great way to unlock AI at scale for those things that might be locked away. So as we bring all of this home, I wanted to just make sure that we close talking about data governance. Some of you mentioned it in the opening, in that how do we start to make progress with data governance? And there's a lot of different approaches out there, but the one that we've seen be most successful with organizations is when we're able to implement a right-sized organic approach to data governance. Governance is fundamentally about ensuring that data used in your business operations and reports and analysis is discoverable, accurate, trusted, and protected. It's an umbrella term that encompasses the people, process, and the technology related to ensuring things like data security, compliance, data catalogs, data quality, and data lineage. In the current era, with all of the ever-evolving regulations and the proliferation of AI and regulation specific to AI, governance is as critical as data security is. And so when we talk about taking this right-sized approach, we want to give you some steps to take, which is number one, focus on those critical business processes first. You don't have to boil the ocean. Focus on those critical processes first. Really get your process down that works for your organization. Another key thing is making sure that you create that centralized knowledge base, whether it's platforms like Purview or Databricks Unity Catalog or others. Having that centralized place you can center the data governance conversations around is critical. Establishing roles and responsibilities. I'm sorry.
Jeff, I saw a question come up.
Oh, yes. Is there a question?
I actually want to start just typing it in because I didn't want to interrupt you. The biggest challenge that you will see with data governance is getting the business users to understand that they are integral part of it, and actually owning the data. Because otherwise, it's always seen as an IT project. So what I would love to learn more is like, how do you go about ensuring that ownership happens to identify, establish, but that doesn't actually hold or take effect? Without that, all the other things that we're talking about, from creating the centralized base and then defining the metadata, all of that just doesn't happen.
Absolutely. And you're exactly right. Anytime you start a data governance program and you're establishing those roles and responsibilities, oftentimes in the beginning, data governance is an additional role to someone's day job. And it takes a lot of executive sponsorship to understand that data governance is important. And there are a lot of different techniques and ways that you can try. And it depends on the culture of the organization in terms of making sure that people take it seriously. But ultimately, it's about that executive sponsorship and making sure that from the top down, they understand just how important data governance is and are going to implement both carve out the time available for those people to help do their data governance duties, whether it's a data steward in the business or so on, and make sure that the processes are implemented and everyone understands what part that they play in the overall people and process roles and responsibilities of a data governance project. It is not easy. And I don't want to gloss over the fact that just because we have a slide up here that it's super easy and that everybody does it well, it takes time. Data governance is an expensive process because it is heavily involved with people and process. Technology is just the enabler of it. It's kind of like the last 10 to 20%, right? The people and process part, though, establishing the roles and responsibilities, establishing the policies and processes, those are the things that take time and each organization needs to work through to make sure that they do it the right way for their organization. Thank you for the question. I think that the popularity of AI is really pushing data governance, this topic, to the forefront, and customers are increasingly citing the need to establish a data governance program before they move forward with AI projects. And even though that isn't always the case where that has to be true, a lot of customers have that mindset, and it's not the only path forward to make sure that you have data governance implemented before you start an AI project, but you certainly need a plan for how you're going to implement a data governance program if you don't already have one. I think I'll pause there and hand this back over to Jeremy to bring us home.
So you're saying, Jeff, that tools alone or people alone or process alone isn't going to get the job done.
That's right. No, it's a triad, and all three of those have to work together in order to make data governance successful.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. So just to tie up a couple of things here. So we talked about this idea of fragmented data across silos and ecosystems. You can make AI progress maybe within a particular system or domain or something like that. But ultimately, what we see is customers recognizing that their data platform has to evolve. And so we're engaging with them, for example, in workshops to talk about what the evolution of their data estate, their core data platform capabilities might look like. Jeff did a great job of talking through these process and capability gaps. It takes people at the end of the day. And so often organizations are working with us to refresh their data governance baseline. Where are we? We've been working at this for a while. There are other use cases in the organization that are making us focus on our data, but it's probably a good time to snap the chalk line and be able to articulate to the rest of the organization the progress that we've made together. Of course, consistency or understandability of data. One of my favorite running jokes oftentimes when I'm in workshops is that if you can't look at the database table and understand what every column and row is about, Gen AI isn't going to have a shot at being able to produce something coherent back for that. So this definition and this understandability, it gets real pretty quickly, especially if you're trying to go after database or structured data with generative AI use cases. So what we're doing is we're offering ways with a Purview POC to be able to step in and do a show and share to the organization about the value of consistency and understandability in data definition can bring across multiple different styles of analytics and AI use cases. And then lastly, that knowledge being locked up in the unstructured data, really that light bulb moment for the medical research institution that we worked with was when their utilization went off the charts because they enabled self-service for AI insights for the experts who knew the information best. These were not technologists necessarily. These were clinicians. These were researchers. The people who already could look at that unstructured data, knew the context, knew how to judge what AI was giving back to them in terms of summarization or correlation or insights, and be able to make intelligent, highly informed judgments about it. The moment you gave them an on-ramp, the utilization of that really took off. And ultimately, for those of us who are in the business about being tasked to deliver AI value into an organization, adoption and utilization is really one of the key things that we all aspire and hope for, driving real, true business outcomes. I'm just going to jump over here. If you'd like to connect with Jeff or myself, LinkedIn information and other contact information is on the screen, but I'd love to throw it out for questions here. I see one that got put in the chat. Putting data governance in place is like having green lights on the road before even backing the car out of the garage. What's the bare minimum, Jeff? The bare minimum to get started with AI?
If you want a bare minimum, you don't have to have any data governance, but that could potentially lead to some problems and some of those barriers that we talked about, right? But certainly, I think to Ben's point, right above this, start with the focused use case and build the proper governance into that use case and that business case. You don't have to boil the ocean. Start small and start to evolve the data governance process from there. It really is all about getting to an effective outcome with AI without necessarily having to do a bunch of pre-processing of all of those things before you get to the actual development of the use case.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. I think that's really the difference between a POC and a pilot for a lot of our organizations that we work with. Anybody can scrape together a good enough set of data to make a POC spit back intelligent insights or other things like that. But it's really about when you look at that opportunity to say, okay, this is the thing we're going to scale, seizing that as an opportunity to add in the people, process, and other elements in it to begin to build that maturity as you go. That was a great question, Sid. Thank you. Other questions, come off of mute, drop them in the chat. We're here for you. While we're waiting,
Hi.
Yes, we will share the recording. I saw someone cut off of mute.
Yeah, this is Rajiv. I have a question in terms of the catalog that gets prepared or review is a little smart enough to pull the information from the data sources. But in terms of the accuracy of the catalog, it could be technically correct from the purview perspective. Some of the table or column names are not meaningful defined, and it's totally as not semantically very strong. So it does not have a business meaning. Now somebody has to do these column corrections. Either you go modify this on the source table, which is ideally you won't be doing it because that can break the underlying application or system. What would be the right approach when you get into these situations where column names or data entities are very vague and cannot be explained? How does Purview or this process would be able to handle?
Yeah, so this really comes down to making sure that you define who some of the data owners are for a particular source and making sure you frame the data governance process so that they understand that it's important for them to spend time making sure that data catalog is up to date and accurate. Not everyone is going to have expertise in every data source, but there is someone in the organization that typically knows the ins and outs of a particular data source. So even if it's not perfectly semantically defined or the metadata is not perfect as it stands, having someone that understands that data source and understands that data of what it should be can then be empowered to go into the data catalog and make sure that it is up to date.
And place for maintaining this catalog would be on the Purview, or you do this correction on the source system?
It certainly Purview is a great place for it if you happen to have chosen that platform as a way to do it. Defining that in the data catalog is a great way because to come into the search experience for Purview, it's very business user friendly. It's a non-technical experience. And so when you are able to make sure that it's defined there, that enables it for everyone that could be searching for where data may be in an organization, in an enterprise.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
And I saw one more question in here from Satya. How do you balance between integrity of reporting and one version of the truth and citizen content creation and self-service?
So that's a great question. I think it comes down to, we want to have enough control, back to that kind of right-sized approach. We want to have enough control of the data so that it provides accurate results and accurate models and so on, whether it's reports or AI models, et cetera. But you don't want to have so many controls that it prevents, stifles innovation and stifles that citizen development. Some organizations have a very extremely draconian policy that they can't move forward with AI without getting approval by this centralized board. And nobody wants to mess with that. They just want to go do their job and do it well and see if they can use AI to make themselves more efficient. And other organizations are very loosey-goosey. They don't have a lot of controls as well. It's kind of the Wild West, and everybody can leverage these tools without a lot of control or auditing of what is going on. And so I think there's a balance there to strike where you want to know what's going on, what type of things are being created in that citizen development space, but at the same time, trying not to stifle innovation to help unlock their productivity.
And I will say unstructured data is a unique dimension because in this equation that in the question you're asking, like there are a lot of organizations that I've worked with who have a part of their organization, let's say a large ag equipment manufacturer. They have a whole organization of people who are tasked with producing incredibly high quality supporting material to support their equipment, whether it's customer facing, technician facing, manuals, all of this sorts of stuff. And so you may have in your organization advocates for data governance, good examples of people who care deeply about information quality. They just may not be coming from the people who are tied to your ERP system or tied to your warehouse management system or other things. You may have an opportunity to demonstrate some of these concepts with really valuable and high quality data because there's already somebody who's focused on making it high quality. So just another way as you think about information workloads and mapping those to use cases, an opportunity for you.
Jeremy, one thing that you talk about a lot and you experience with our clients and is really the fundamental change where AI demands much better collaboration between business and IT. And it's not a one-time thing that you build it and then that's done. So by involving the right people in your project from the very beginning, and then their roles must modify a little bit throughout the project. You talk about data governance here, so now they have a bigger stake in the quality of the data to get the results that everybody is looking for. But you get the ownership from everybody because they're involved from the very beginning and you're building together. And that's a huge differentiator with an AI project versus a traditional technology project.
Absolutely. Other questions? We're happy to stay a few minutes over for you. I've seen my LinkedIn notifications pop a few times while we've been on the call here, so look forward to connecting with you all. Feel free to reach out to Jeff and myself on an ongoing basis. Just as we look down, much like many of you, we're going to take a bit of a summer hiatus for July and August, but we'll be back in September. Nobody's talking about agentic AI, right? But what we're going to be coming back with is a lot of organizations are really struggling to say, what are those practical first steps? I get the hype, but what are the angles? What are the vectors for introducing agentic concepts and agentic value into parts of my existing organization? Good news, if you've already got an invite and you've showed up for this series, you're going to get an invite for that one in mid-September. Have a great time. Have a great summer. We look forward to seeing you in September, and we'll have even more topics that are up in the series. If there's any topic you'd love to see, reach out to us. We will put it next in line. So with that, on behalf of Jeff, the entire Lantern team, thank you so much for attending. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Thanks, everyone.